there. So if you could have her, what would that mean to you? And right at the top of the list, I say, oh, that means I'm wanted. That means I'm desired. That means I'm good enough. That means I'm attractive. That means, she's interested. I'm valued. All of those kinds of things. So then I say, okay, so that means if you could have her, it means all of these things to you. So being that you can't have her, that means you're not wanted, you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you're not attractive, you're not, on and on and on. You go through all of these things. And I encourage you guys to even go take a notepad or whatever and go in adoration and set and with Jesus. Like, when I see this, what is it that I'm looking for? What does that mean to me? And have him help you come up with the things that you're desiring, that you're missing. So when you look at these things, take a step back and say, okay, well, I'm not wanted, I'm not worthy. Why not? Where did that come from? What's the earliest time in your life you can remember not being worthy or not being good enough, not being wanted? Were you ever abandoned? Did your parents divorce? Anything like that? You think back to situations with, the parents, peers, teachers, siblings, whatever. What is it that led you to believe that you weren't these things? Because all of these are lies. 100%, they are all lies. They're all from the enemy. They're all disordered. They're just not true. But you believe them somehow. So where do they come from?
Tell Them For Me, a podcast brought to you by Road to Purity, where recovering sex addict Dan opens up to his son David about his journey towards healing and redemption. Whether you're battling addiction or know someone who is, this podcast offers a beacon of hope and a reminder that you're not alone in this fight. Tune in and let's navigate this journey together.
All right, hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about lust. Seems there's a lot of confusion on lust out there that we want to clear up. What is lust? Can you get rid of it? Is it just something that all men deal with that you're just kind of stuck with forever? These are the types of things we're going to talk about today. So let's get into it. What did you want to address first?
Well, what I wanted to share basically is that so many men that I talk to, even though they may have some sobriety, as they call, not having looked at porn or maybe acted out, masturbated or whatever in months or even years, they may say, oh, I just deal with lust, but that's just something I'll always have to deal with because that's always there. But at least I'm not acting out. Mm-hmm. And my statement to them is that's not true. It's not something that you, especially men, are always having to deal with and interact. It's a sign that there is something else still going on. And that's what I'm looking to address.
Okay. How often do you see people saying that?
I would say nearly all the time, 100% of the men I deal with lust, and probably a third of the men that I deal with that say, oh, I've had, a year of sobriety, whatever. I haven't, looked at porn in 5 years or whatever. They're still saying that there's just some lust that they deal with, but they manage that.
Because, we were talking right before we started recording, and I don't know if I've heard people say that specifically before. What do they mean by that when they say, well, yeah, I mean, you're obviously not acting out in pornography or other areas. So what do you mean you struggle with lust? Is that just I keep having impure thoughts about...
It's generally that about...
my own imagination, people I see. What
It could be that. It's mostly what I see is individuals will see someone... a guy will see a woman dressed in a certain way that triggers them, and they will have thoughts about that person that are impure and may linger on them for a bit, and then through their discipline and mortification, whatever they've gone through, as well as their past and healing and so forth, they're able to just stop there. And my statement to them is that part doesn't even have to happen, depending on where a person is in their frame of mind and what they've healed. my point is that when that is going on, there's still something else behind it that's going on, and there are ways to find that.
Is there not a point though where it's like we just live in an over-sexualized culture, and there's gonna be some people, you go to the beach or whatever, and some people are really provocative, and like there's only so much. Is there not still a point where it's, or are we talking about something different?
It's some of that, but I think there's always a temptation when something is seen, but it's where you go with it and what is being tempted. And when you're at the beach, for example, that you give, and someone is girls dressed in real skimpy and whatever, and you see that, do you have certain impure thoughts when you see that, or is it something that you're more of a place to where you would either pray for that person, or you would be more repelled by because of the way that person is portraying themselves, or even look and see that what that person may be even trying to do intentionally or unintentionally is for getting attention, and the way they're trying to get attention.
Right.
So what is it that you're thinking, and where is your mind going with that?
Okay. So it's the difference between, like, yeah, obviously you might go somewhere and see someone in a bikini, and there's a natural, like, provocative piece to that. There's a natural attraction and temptation that may come with that, but you can, if you're in a better state, able to see the person there and really not reflect on it or sit with it. But when people are talking about, well, I just struggle with lust, it's like I'm sitting there going to, like, ooh, I want to be with her.
Right.
I want to,
want
so on
that.
and so forth. Yeah. And really objectify and really just kind of run with it in a way that's like, wow, you're fantasizing about this person now.
We have to be attracted. God made us that way. Otherwise, we wouldn't be attracted to anybody and for any purpose. We'd never populate the human race, So there has to be an attraction, but there should be an attraction to the person to start with. There's also a physical beauty that's there, but not a sexual beauty necessarily. So
at least not one that you can fully appreciate outside of marriage.
Right. Yeah. Right. Or when that is being flaunted or demonstrated, to per se, it's something that a male in his, pure mind, if you will, would see that and say, oh, okay, yeah, what is she looking for? Or that's really not something I want to look at.
Yeah. I guess with that, I tend to go back to, like, thinking, I guess this is probably different if you are celibate, but I think very marriage forward, like that, your body being a gift to your spouse. And when I see people out there like that, dressed a certain way, it's like that is not, like, that's beautiful, and I can recognize the literal God-given beauty in that person, but that's a gift for someone else. That's not for me to really appreciate as a as a gift.
Right. I think there's a difference between personal beauty and sexual beauty in that way. So then that anyone, anyway, with a like a priest or whatever who's celibate, would still be able to look at that person in a personal beauty, human beauty.
Yeah.
And it's a different frame of mind of what it is that you're looking for. You understand who humans are and who we are, and how our desires are disordered.
Yeah.
And where they came from. And there's things that I work with specifically in guys that kind of help point to some of the pieces where they're at and help them to see that this is really possible to not look at it that way.
Right. So yeah, I guess that's the question from here is, okay, so we have people who are saying, well, I just struggle with lust, but thankfully they're at least able to not get into porn and go hook up and all the other stuff that a lot of men struggle with. But you're saying it's not that it has to be that way. So what do you do? Why doesn't it have to be that way?
Well, there's an exercise that I do with guys that kind of paint a picture and give an idea of where some of the root of this is, and also a picture of where they can be. And the way it goes is I'll sit with a guy and work with him and tell him, So think of something without being graphic and without being, tempted or whatever with it. Just think of some situation where there was a woman who you really were tempted to lust after. And again, without being graphic or thinking specific things, just look at her and say to yourself, if I could have her, what would that mean to me? You know off the top of your head that first, well, that's objectification, and that's wrong. And I'm having, I could have sexual thoughts or whatever, and I know that's not right in my head. But your desire is still there, and you're battling that desire. You're saying, no, I can't think that. No, I shouldn't do. But it's still there. So if you could have her, what would that mean to you? And right at the top of the list, cries, oh, that means I'm wanted. That means I'm desired. That means I'm good enough. That means I'm attractive. That means, she's interested. I'm valued. All of those kinds of things. So then I say, okay, so that means if you could have her, it means all of these things to you. So being that you can't have her, that means you're not wanted, you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you're not attractive, you're not, on and on. You go through all of these things. And I encourage a guy to even go take a notepad or whatever and go in adoration and set and with Jesus, say, okay, when I see this, what is it that I'm looking for? What does that mean to me? And have him help you come up with the things that you're desiring, that you're missing. So when you look at these things, take a step back and say, okay, well, I'm not wanted, I'm not worthy. Why not? Where did that come from? What's the earliest time in your life you can remember not being worthy or not being good enough, not being wanted? Were you ever abandoned? Did your parents divorce? Anything like that? You think back to situations with, the parents, peers, teachers, siblings, whatever. What is it that led you to believe that you weren't these things? Because all of these are lies.
Right.
100%. They are all lies. They're all from the enemy. They're all disordered. They're just not true. But you believe them somehow. So where do they come from? That is something that helps point back to a wound or brokenness to begin with. So that's kind of a telltale speed line, if you will, to a wound or something you need to work on or something that's still there. So then I say, okay, now we look at these things and see where do they all come from, and you go through that effort, and now you know where maybe you need to work on some stuff, and we do that in our program as well, the Restoring God's Foundation program. And then I say, all these things are lies. They're flat out not true. So now imagine the truth that you are loved, you are wanted, you are worthy, you are good enough, you are desired. All of these things. Jesus gives you all of these things to such an extent that they are overflowing on you. You have more than you can take because it's so much that you have to give it to others because it's overflowing from you to others. You can't even accept it all because it's so wonderful and you're so full of his love. It's overflowing. Now you're in that state of mind to where you realize that I am perfectly loved, I am wanted, I am understood, all of this. I am so full and accepted. Now you see that woman. Do you want her? 100% of the time, the guy says, no.
How many people have you done this with?
50.
Oh, okay. So it's pretty, yeah.
Yeah, 100%, maybe 40. 100% of the time, do you want that person? No. Why? I don't need her. Bingo. Yeah. That's the thing. You're lusting because you think you need that. There's something missing. What's missing? When it's all filled and it's all healed and there's nothing missing, you don't need that. You see that person, you don't want it. Just don't need it. Don't care. So if there's a person that is personally beautiful and her behavior and the way she acts and the way she moves and whatever, it's like, I'd really like to get to know her. And you're saying,
it's oriented towards the person now.
Right.
The relationship, the connection, not
right.
I
just want her, not that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
right.
a good way to put it.
And that's the thing. And it's like, I want myself, I want to know her because I want to be with her as a person, close on everything. I could just sit and talk to this person for hours.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even interested in anything else. And then as it develops and as you have a relationship, that then other things will happen. But of course, in being unmarried and so forth. And that's where that needs to be. And it's not just something that I need to do this because otherwise I'm not following God's will. It's not a matter of self-control so much. But self-control is what they're exhibiting first. It's a matter of being in the right place of who you are, who your true identity is in Christ, and what you're not needing. So these things just aren't necessary.
Right. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
And it works.
So, I guess just to sum up, you have to find. It's about the foundation of. This is kind of, I think, the theme throughout pretty much everything that we work with and everything that you work with, guys, is the underlying theme of what's really going on, what's really motivating your desires, your interests when you're looking at someone, whether you're fully blown into porn or full sex addiction or just having lustful thoughts in general. So I think the only thing that I'm curious about that I think might be good to touch on too is so you're able to kind of backtrack into understanding, the wounds or where that's coming from, that where you go from there. Because okay, you understand that now, and you went through that process and you said, okay, imagine that you had all these things. Imagine that you were wanted, were loved. Do you still want her? No. Okay, that's great and all in the moment when I imagine that. But realistically, I would imagine most guys go home and they're like, well, but I actually don't still, if I felt loved and wanted and desired, when I think about her, I don't need her.
Right.
But I don't feel that way.
Right.
So great trick, Dan, but what do I do now?
Well, that was part of the exercise when you get back to the point of why don't I feel this way? And you identify each individual thing that you thought of, that this person was going to give you, for example, which doesn't really happen, but what is it? So that way, when you discover what it is that's missing or what it is that's empty or broken, if you will, you can find those sources and work with them. You need to go through certain processes of discovery, of healing, of forgiveness, and a whole the Restoring God's Foundation program leads through all of these things. But for the most part, it's discovery of the woundedness and healing them, and fear, and like I said, forgiveness and working through that with yourself. And a lot of times it's forgiveness of self as well with all of these. So that whole process is, probably like a 2 or 3 part podcast in and of itself.
Sure.
But that's essentially where we need to go. One thing I wanted to kind of point out too is we talk about this in the form of lust of a person.
Right.
And we need to look at this also as this lust doesn't have to be of a person in a way. It could be of anything. You could use the word lust for anything. I lust for power. I lust for success. I lust for of things. So many of us, our lives and how we live our lives and what we do is based on the same thing. Same roots, same issue, same thing. We just manifest it in a different way.
Yeah. Well, now you're talking about the human condition. I mean, it's all we're seeking so many things out of our pain and our fears and our whatever, and we're looking for fulfillment in money or power, success, all the things you're just talking about.
And it's all the same root.
Really, though, we were designed for relationship with God, and without understanding that, we're never going to be fulfilled.
Right. And that's where, because of the specialty that I have in my own history, that's why we refer things to lust. That's one of the biggest issues, the world today. So that's what we focus on. But it works with anything.
Yeah, no, that is a thing. I think that is important to mention, that we are Road to Purity. That you started, the whole ministry is focused on helping people with sexual impurity and sexual addiction, but the tools that you've discovered and learned and been educated on and put into practice and helped thousands of men are all tools that actually at their basic level, like you're saying, apply to so much more than just sexual impurity. It's the underlying roots of whatever addiction you have or whatever struggle, even if it's not a full-blown addiction, but wherever you're navigating, applies to so many things.
Right. And I think back to, as you said, we're looking for God, whatever is what's going to fulfill it and so forth. And I look back to like for the very, very beginning of my recovery, one of the first things that just blew me away was Christopher West in a talk, quoted G.K. Chesterton. He said, "Every man who stands at the doorstep of a brothel is looking for God."
Yeah.
And I had been at the doorstep of a brothel more than once.
Yeah.
And it just floored me when I heard that.
Yeah. Yeah, if anybody's curious and hasn't checked it out yet, check out the first 3 podcasts on Dan's full story. You'll hear more about that. If you haven't heard already, it's pretty crazy stuff. Well, cool. I think that is very encouraging for people to know that lust can be overcome. That it's really about something else and understanding that. Was there anything else you wanted to add to wrap up?
No, I think it's pretty much what I wanted to cover for this topic. But just, if anybody's curious or needs any help in this area at all, Restoring God's Foundation is a program. RoadToPurity.com is the main website of our company. The program is free.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the program is free. You can do it yourself. You can start one at your parish. These are also concepts, like this concept alone, you could take to a therapist. I mean, you could sit there and kind of go through that exercise and understand what's going on and work through it with a therapist.
Yeah.
But, we also offer, that's our main shtick. We also offer a lot of those resources that are incredibly effective. So if anybody's interested in those, please check those out. Again, roadtopurity.com. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. God bless. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed our podcast. If you have any topics you'd like us to discuss in future episodes, shoot us an email at ask@roadtopurity.com. Don't forget to visit our website, roadtopurity.com, for all our free resources and affordable programs to help men and women who are looking to grow in sexual purity. We rely on donations to keep doing what we do, so if you'd like to support Road to Purity, please consider donating at roadtopurity.com/donate. Thanks again for your support. God bless.